Pokemon Legends EA is right around the corner, and it turns out I have a few more things to say before its release, which will probably be less than a week away by the time I actually get this video posted. I went to PAX West back in August and was given the opportunity while I was there to get a behind-the-scenes look at a bunch of upcoming Nintendo titles, as well as upcoming titles for the Nintendo Switch 2, which thank you to Nintendo of America for inviting me to check out all these games. But of course, I said this video was going to specifically be about PLZA, and even since I was able to play those demos, we've gotten more footage and demo gameplay content since I was able to check that out. So I will do my best to try to incorporate the new info here as well. While I was at PAX, I actually got the chance to play the demo twice, once down on the main floor, which was offered via the scheduled Warp Pipe passes a few weeks before PAX, but again up in the behind the scenes media event. And honestly, because I got the chance to play it twice, I really feel like I got to experience it more comprehensively because I mainly knew what I was doing the second time around. So since the Nintendo event was my second time playing, I got to play it with a little more efficiency and could pay attention to a few more details that I probably wouldn't have seen otherwise. And unlike my most recent Kalos video and my normal thought process when approaching lore and analysis, which I do my best to really try to only cling to facts or history-backed information, I might go against my normal standard here and just lean a little bit more into speculation, but I do still really want to try my best to stay grounded in this approach. The first thing I want to get into is these crystal-like features that were present in the second demo as you were running and chasing Zygarde. If you don't know, the reachable ones seem to have an interactable feature the way that resources did in PLA when you were collecting things like apricorns and tumblestones. The collection sound even seems quite similar. And when breaking these features, you collect mega shards, and the larger features themselves seem to be called mega crystals. Now, what's most interesting to me is these mega crystals seem to be all over different areas of the map, and seemingly in places where they shouldn't be, like on the sides of the buildings in Lumiose City. We know that something is going on with the mega evolution phenomenon here in Lumiose City, causing rogue mega evolutions, and will presumably be a large portion of the plot for this game, but let's take a little bit of a closer look. I'm immediately observant of the color that these mega crystals seem to be, as it essentially is giving a Diancie vibe to me. If you're unfamiliar, Diancie is a mythical Pokemon who, prior to the rollout of the newly discovered mega reveals specifically for PLZA, was the only Pokemon first discovered in Kalos to have a mega form. Along with that, Diancie is believed to be, according primarily to things like its dex entries, a mutation of sorts, or as the dex describes it, a transformation of Carbink. So these Pokemon are recognized as being related and do in many ways seem to look very similar to each other, sharing things like their typing and technically not being gendered, although I am definitely still going to be using she, her for Diancie just as an FYI. And I'll be honest that both of these Pokemon have really been piquing my interest the past few years because I just had to assume they had a bigger role to play in understanding of the Pokemon universe, especially because they've been popping up all over the place, like in the caves in Kitakami, for example. Carbink are often found in places like caves, or more specifically in deep underground caverns where they are sometimes found during excavations. And I could very quickly go on a whole tangent about Area Zero in the Paldea region, Carbink being present there alongside Glimmet and Glamora, but like I seem to say very often, let's save that for another time. But tying that back to Diancie, and maybe even what we're seeing here, could this be the potential introduction of connecting Diancie and even Carbink by proximity to the full and more comprehensive understanding of mega evolution? Could Diancie somehow be the key to learning the truth and complexities surrounding the remaining mysteries regarding mega evolution and its history? My friend, researcher Ryan, also made it a point in one of our many extensive Pokemon history and science conversations to say that these crystals also feel reminiscent of the Annister City Sundial. I covered the extensive history of mega evolution, which includes the role of the sundial, in my Kalos history video, so be sure to check that out if you would like more info. But as a quick refresher, the sundial is in fact tied directly to mega evolution, being the place where Sycamore shows the playable character that using their mega ring here will help them to find mega stones throughout Kalos. Obviously, Annister City and its sundial are quite a ways away from Lumiose City, whose bounds we are not leaving for the new Legends title, but I do have a hard time chalking it all up simply to mere coincidence. And unfortunately, the reality of it is still that, like many other components of the Pokemon universe and how it works, they may never answer the question or fully fully connect these dots. But I would love to know how you feel about this connection. Do I seem a little too far-fetched or crazy on this one? Maybe. Now, I've talked about the retconning of Pokemon canon, most specifically the knowledge of the existence of new Pokemon being known in regions that came first. And I've asked a few times about whether we'll see that in this game, including in some of my past videos. As aside from the first partner Pokemon, we haven't really seen any new Pokemon not previously known to be native to Kalos in any trailer or footage. And more specifically, we haven't seen any new Pokemon in this content, aka Pokemon who were introduced after the 6th generation. Pokemon Legends Arceus was able to do this primarily with the introduction of the Hisuian forms of Pokemon with things like the Nobles. So Pokemon that had never been known to exist in theory around the time that the Sinnoh region was introduced now has the history to know of at least things like Braviary, Lilligant, and Avalugg, even though all of the first forms of all of these Pokemon were originally introduced in titles whose regions were introduced later. And unfortunately, even after having played the demo, I still don't have any specifics for you regarding the actual Pokemon that may be in the game, interactable or catchable. But we have seen a few small things that are helping to support retconning, while, in my opinion, continuing to affirm that the dex is not going to differ tremendously from what we've already seen in Kalos and may not include any new Pokemon that were introduced after X and Y at all. And this has mainly been through artwork, if you will, in little corners of the trailers and teasers. The first real observation I was made aware of was with characters having Densoku clothing on. That is the fashion line with its insignia being that of a Boltund running, first introduced in the 8th generation Sword and Shield titles taking place in the Galar region. While of course not using this to suggest that Boltund is in this game, it does help imply the understanding that 1, the Galar region is known by people in Kalos, so much so that they have their clothing lines here, and 2, that they would likely at least know of Boltund since it's the featured insignia on the clothing line's design. I mean, it would also arguably, of course, suggest that all Galarian Pokemon are known since they're likely importing goods from Galar to this region in this game, but you get my point. And with that, I'd like to just add another Pokemon that I spotted in the game, specifically in the first demo where you get to take on the Zia Royale experience, and that is Poplio, which is viewable on this little poster in passing. Again, this is not in any way suggesting that Poplio or its line will be in this game, it's just more affirming how it seems to be that Pokemon is choosing to retcon this game. And that seems to be more with just the acknowledgement and understanding that these Pokemon have always existed, but unfortunately, in my opinion, suggests as well that the majority of the Pokemon expansion will be with new and existing megas in this title. And I have actually had to amend this section ever so slightly in working on it the past few weeks because it does seem to be the case, as shown in some of the final trailers, that Pokemon capable of mega evolving but only previously having done so in the Hoenn region appear as though they may be obtainable in this game. In one of the last trailers, we got a bunch of shots of Pokemon like Altaria, Sableye, and Metagross mega evolving, seeming to imply that they will at least be present in Lumiose City, but also likely be catchable in this game. While I understand these choices and the intent to put Mega Evolution at the front of this game, especially seeing as Mega Evolution will likely be influencing the plot of this game, I am still holding out the tiniest glimpse of hope for some regional forms of Pokemon, something not previously known to have existed in Kalos, landing in Lumiose City and developing its own regional variant, likely one influenced by its urban surroundings, would be such an awesome way to tie more of these games together, but I am being mindful that the likelihood of that at this point is probably very slim. Now, if it's not entirely obvious, AZ and his partner Floette are just some of my favorite characters in the entirety of the Pokemon universe. A lot of my historic and archaeological training is specifically in the ancient Near East, so a character with connections to one of my favorite mythology figures is going to land for me. I also genuinely just love Floette, and I love his Floette and how unique she is. It's not an entirely crazy theory, and I believe specifically the connections that AZ has to the Hoenn region help support this this a little bit better, but I so hope we get more insight into both AZ and Floette in this game. And most specifically, what makes his Floette different? Is it just that she is an ancient form of Floette and had access to other flowers different than the fairy flower we see Floette of the modern day carry, or is she truly one of a kind? Honestly, I feel like it'll essentially somehow be both of those things at the same time, and it's also highly likely we won't get any real clarifying information, but I hope we get even snippets from either of them that give us more insight. I also want to point out that in one of the last released trailers, we got to see Floette use a move for the first time, as up until this point, Floette's moveset was technically completely unknown. Based on data mining from Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and some small little nods to it in various places during the 6th and I think 7th generation, Light of Ruin is supposed to be the signature move of specifically AZ's Floette, with no other Pokemon either having access to this move or the ability to use it. And this move we see in this trailer shot here seems to very much be Light of Ruin. It is kind of fair though to say we've technically seen Floette use this move maybe in the flashbacks from the Great War, but again, nothing has been confirmed up until this point, so I'm just excited to finally see what looks like some clarity and answers in this coming game. And the same thing goes for AZ specifically, as I'm really hoping to get more insight into his history and his role in the story of Kalos. But of course, also in this game, as this is still at the end of the day a children's game centering our friends Lita, Naveen, Tawny, and Urbane as the ones who will generally guide us through most of the game. It does make sense and is of course true to Pokemon fashion, but it seems like our home for the game will in fact be Hotel Z, and that also seems to be the place where Team MZ coordinates and meets. In the various trailer shots over the last several months, we get tons of footage of Hotel Z, of AZ and Floette being present there, so I have to assume he's going to have a role hopefully comparable to Laventon or Kamado's presence in PLA in this game. I just truly am so excited getting to experience this game knowing that these characters are returning. I had a handful of other thoughts, at least those I don't think I could manage to make substantive segments of this video, so here's just a rapid fire of some of those things. Researcher Ryan and I had a long call several weeks ago doing what we normally do as Pokemon researchers and got on the topic of where is Hotel Z? We spent a lot of time staring at the map trying to find if the hotel was actually already there or if we could guess where it might be. Our hypothesis was that you would start the game in Vert Plaza, which is this bottom right quintant, as that made the most sense since we know that you, the playable character, arrives in what seems to be the train station. That, coupled with the knowledge that Sycamore's lab was in that plaza in the X and Y titles, it would just seem to make a lot of sense for gameplay. Well, I do feel like we were right, because the first gameplay demo does in fact seem to drop you right in the Vert Plaza, and what do you know, there's Hotel Z. Which would be right here if this map is to any kind of scale, and I'm guessing the Fletchling and Fletchender placement on here was intentionally covering this. And along with that, here is also the research lab, but funnily enough, that description does in fact say that it has an acting director as opposed to just director, which Pokemon does continue to identify is Mabel, but begs the question about the fate of Sycamore. If he seemingly departed for any reason, or if there is something to be concerned about his fate, but that's truly all the info we have. And in my opinion, that's definitely one of those speculation can go too far kind of journeys, so we'll just have to see what the game shows us. Next up, the sewer system has finally made an official appearance in one of the last trailers with a quick shot of a handful of Pokemon roaming around the way we see with other Pokemon in similar kinds of setups in the same trailer. Now, of course, this has been a big speculation from a lot of fans and creators, and I've even been critical of the jumping to conclusions about this whole thing, and I'm going to admit I am still holding my breath. I do think it's pretty fair to say that we may in fact simply be able to go down in the sewer system, which, just to clarify, I think is a good thing. But I do still feel like adding this in this specific compilation of clips is suggesting that it's just going to be an area to go in and catch Pokemon in, not the place where the bulk or even any significant part of the story will actually occur. But hey, if I'm wrong, that's completely fine. Of course, we had literally no indication this would be an accessible part of the game until the last few weeks, So, one of the things with creating hypotheses and theories is adjusting and reassessing what we know when we're given more info. Part of me also wants to dive deeper into everything we see with Emma. It does very much seem like she is, in fact, running the Looker Bureau at this point. And based on the various demo gameplays, she seems to be very present in the story. I have been comparing her to Laventon's presence specifically, being that adult guide that will tell you what to do next and be able to give you insight into the comprehensive understanding of the story. In the same way with AZ and Floette, I'm really excited to have Emma back. A lot of people don't even know who Emma is or what her role was in the original X and Y titles. But again, I think she's going to be more of one of these guiding roles, and we probably won't see a ton more of her story because we technically already got her backstory in X and Y. But I'm still excited to see her. I'm excited for Mimi to be back, and we'll just have to see if there's more to it than we seem to guess already. This is just another video I've been working on and scripting for about a month, so I really am hoping it'll be live for you at least a week before the game's release so we can have a little bit of fun before launch. The Kalos region has just been my favorite since the release of X and Y in 2013, and I still can't even watch my original game announcement reaction from last year without getting a little bit emotional because I love this region so much, and I feel like in so many ways she's finally getting her flowers. Of course, I'd love to know what you think about some of the ideas and theories I've talked about here, what you're speculating and hoping for, and what you're looking forward to most in this game. I get asked about this all the time, but yes, I will be streaming this title when it releases, and I will be doing that on my Twitch channel. I'll be streaming the game on release day and throughout the several days or week after the game comes out until we finish it. So if you'd like to join us for that playthrough, be sure to hop on over there. I stream most weekdays beginning around 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard or currently Eastern Daylight Time, and we have an awesome community that spends their days there with us, so hopefully you'll consider joining us. In so many ways, I have a million other thoughts about this game, but with the release so close, maybe it's best we meet back on the other side of the story and dive deeper into what we've learned once it's all said and done. Until then, thank you as always for watching. Consider subscribing if you'd like to see more content like this, and we will see you again very soon.